Okay. Okay, we'll get going now, just because we won't get to the actual 3D designing in this initial 5 minutes. So if anybody's straggling in, they can still catch up. It's going to be, once we get to the actual designing, it will be, lots of buttons, lots of knowing how to use the tools. So obviously, if you need me to slow down, say how to do something again, back up, you can always unmute. You can put a question in the chat. I'll keep that open on the side, hopefully, if I can fit it. In the chat is the handout, the Tinkercad link, and a website to get designs off of. So obviously this class will be looking at how to design in 3D, both just from scratch. We'll see how to choose shapes and kind of combine a whole bunch of shapes to make a new design, and how to manipulate it, resize it, all that kind of stuff. And we'll also mention and see at the end of the class how we can take some pre-made designs, like on this website. We have all these things that we can just print off if we want. But we can also just download these files and put them inside a Tinkercad design. Then we can kind of manipulate it as a 3D design. We can customize it. We can kind of change it if we want. So that's what we'll be doing today. And obviously the goal in mind is probably going to be make something that we can actually print out this design in the end. Everybody who's attending the class, you'll be free to, once we go back into the main library building and renovations have finished, and we have access to the 3D printing machine again, you'll be able to get a free print for coming to this class. A couple of stipulations, like it can't be too big and time to print limitations, the usual things, but you can just mention that you came to this class and print out the design and see how it came out. And in any case, printing is not that expensive anyway. I think it's like $1 at most with us to print out a design. It's just basically to supplement the cost of the plastic filaments. Okay, so today we'll be walking through one kind of long mini project, and then a second one if we have time. We'll see how to use the site, how to manipulate, how to look at a design, how to add shapes and edit it and all that kind of stuff. This is a free, easy to use app. So we have like moms and dads in the class who want to like teach kids. This is definitely a good place to use this tool. Yeah. Okay, so let's take a look at the handout, do a couple things, and then we'll get into the editing. So link on the front page. This link is in the chat. So if you don't know, if you haven't seen it in action, this is what 3D printing is. We have a machine that looks a lot like almost the exact one on this right-hand side, this little model. But basically what 3D printing is it's the like build of a three-dimensional object from a digital file. We design it on a machine, on a website, on an application. And then basically this little nozzle that you can see going at high speed, it basically is melting a long cable of plastic filament, and it's just building it up level by level. So it goes bottom up, just melting it, and then it comes out like that. So you can see, you can kind of see like the lines of the levels as we go up. So it always kind of look like that. You can kind of sand it down, and you can paint it at the end if you want. But this is the gist of what a 3D print looks like. So today we'll be looking at we'll be using a CAD tool, and that's just a computer-aided design. We'll be doing it on a PC instead of molding it in clay or doing something physical. We'll be designing it, and then we'll have a 3D object digital file at the end that we can use to print, that we can edit again, anything that we want. Some fields that use some type of CAD, obviously we'll be kind of printing out toys and little useful things, but fields that use some type of CAD, you have like gaming with graphics, kind of the same thing, special effects with movies and things like that. When it comes to building, a lot of it is done on a PC now and not with a pen and blueprint. manufacturing and designing, machines and things like that. It's a big thing. Publishing and advertising, kind of the same thing, designing graphics and things in 3D. And then lots of miscellaneous things, some application, geology sciences, health, scanning and imaging. They also use CAD to some extent. So it's applicable to a lot of fields. And again, we'll be using this in a way that maybe we just build some toys and some useful little objects. It's a good base to kind of get into the mindset of thinking visually and manipulating it and how to use all the controls to make something in 3 dimensions on a 2-dimensional screen like this. If we take a look at this slide, this is just some examples I pulled from this site. It's by Makerbot. You can just go to this site and kind of look up any design that you want by kind of the name of the design. But you can kind of see, you can kind of do anything you want. You could just do simple kind of solid shapes like a plant pot, even with all these cool designs and things. You can do things like this collapsible basket. You can see this right-hand image. This is how the basket comes straight off the print. It prints like that. And then within seconds, you can just kind of loosen it up and fold it out like this. So one of the uses of 3D printing is kind of like the nature of, the plastic filament itself. Just based on some cool design tricks, you can get something like this. You can do kind of moving toys, like you see this little toy mouse. This also prints out in one piece. And he's kind of got like a moving tail. You can kind of move it like a little plastic chain. So it's not all this, hunks of plastic. You can kind of use the properties of the plastic filament to help you in some way. It's got some flexibility. It's got some leeway like that. So we can do lots of cool stuff. But maybe today we'll just kind of think about doing some simple things. Like we got this cool little cat thing that you can nail up on the wall and then have little keychains that you slot them home on. You can have like a little phone stand. If we go to the website, you can just kind of browse it as we get going. Just go to things. And then you can kind of see the latest things. But if you click on all things, you can kind of see the whole span of what you can do. You can look at things like maybe adults want to look at something like hand tools. You can make all these kinds of useful things just from, printing out a little bit of plastic, and that way you can make a custom piece. You can custom size a thing. You don't have to go out and buy a pack of them if you just need a single thing. You can see with this guy, this is just one solid piece of plastic. So again, we can use the kind of aspect of the plastic filament. It's kind of flexibility to kind of build that into the design. We can go back and see, like, if you have kids into like robotics and little things like that, you can get like some robotics components. You can do lots of things like toys and puzzles and things like that. Basically any small object we can kind of mock up in this. It might be multiple components. We might have to think about how we kind of mesh all the pieces, but you can do it in 3D if you want. This is like a cryptex, which actually spins, one of those little locking code capsules. So it's all possible in 3D design like this. So, I would really suggest taking a look at this. It's a really cool website to even if you don't want to design so many things yourself, it's really cool to just take a look at this website and kind of see, all the things that people have made, and you can just freely take and print out yourself if you want. Yeah, so things to think about, maybe if you haven't seen 3D design, this kind of things to think about. So one that we mentioned is kind of thinking about the flexibility of the plastic itself. Like you can see, this is like one of those chip clips that we printed out. It's probably 2 pieces, and you can kind of see, you can make hinges in plastic, but you also use the flexibility to kind of snap it into place on the end. One thing we had to keep in mind when we design, it's possible if you have something that's kind of too intricate, too many details, you will kind of get used to it. You'll kind of get used to it if you print a lot. You could just have the print machine kind of fail when you actually go to make the actual object. and it always looks like this. The plastic filament, instead of making the object, kind of loses track and kind of becomes this big tangled mess. Sometimes that's just a blip and you can print it a second time and it'll come out fine. But sometimes based on the, how good the machine is and how fine the detail is on the job, it might be a little bit difficult. Speaking of that, just one thing to think about, and this has to do with like how long something takes to print out and how it's printed out. If we do something like this, you can see this dragon, how it would actually print out on the bed is things have to be printed from the base up. So obviously we can't print things, floating above the ground. So what we have to do, we don't have to make this when we design it. The 3D printing machine can do it itself, but we just have to kind of print disposable scaffolding. It just takes a bunch of plastic to kind of build a base up until the point you get back to the actual object. It just has a loose connection that's just resting on top of the object. And then you can, finish the dragon. And then once you print this off, all of this scaffolding, you can kind of just chip away at. You can kind of just pull it away pretty easy. But that's how you build something like this when it's not all ground up and you have things hanging out and things like that. We just use scaffolding. And the main thing to keep in mind is if you have something like this, the object itself might not be too big, but all this scaffolding is going to add on to the time that you need to print something. You have to print all these columns to rest the dragon on. And yeah, so even small objects take a bit of time, like this kind of Disney castle. Even if this is only like a couple inches wide and maybe half a foot tall, that could take all day. So, even things this small, like a Pikachu that's a couple inches tall, that might begin at noon, and it might take till like 2-3 o'clock just to finish it, just based on how fast the nozzle moves. And you can tell how long something will take to print. When you put it into the 3D print machine, it's able to guess how long it's going to take to print based on the size that you printed out. We don't need to think about the size when we make something, because when we take the file of the digital objects that we made and we take it to the print machine, we can scale it at any point that we want. So we kind of make it kind of dimensionless in a way. And then when we print it out, we say, okay, make it 6 inches tall, and then it'll automatically calculate the width and all that. So that's kind of the annoying things about 3D printing, the time constraints and kind of how difficult things can be until we might get into a little messy things. Okay, so now we'll go ahead and jump into the app itself. So we can go on to tinkercad.com, log into that account that hopefully you've made by now. Just off the homepage, we'll just begin from a new design. So from kind of the main page, we can just click create new design, and we'll begin to take a look at the tools, how to manipulate this program now. So to begin, we get kind of a blank field. This is going to be what we can put objects on. And oh, by the way, on the next slide is a kind of cheat sheet of all the buttons you need to press to be able to do things. I'll try to always say out loud which buttons I'm pressing to do things, but just in case you need to check, we got the cheat sheet and the link to like the PDF of it from Tinkercad. Okay, so this is kind of the plane, and this is what will kind of be floating the digital objects that we make on it as we go. And just to begin, we'll see kind of how to kind of change the view without any objects on it yet. So let's just take a look at the buttons actually. So up on the top left, these buttons we'll use once we begin to put shapes on the field, once we put some actual stuff on. Those can kind of copy and paste and undo and redo something. So we got an undo button if we make a mistake. This whole tool line has to do with shapes. So once we put some stuff on the field, we'll take a look at these. On this side, we kind of have.
Sorry, Matthew. Yeah. That icon is not lit up on my. Oh, maybe because I'm on a different one. Well, that the icon that you have, it's not lit up.
This one?
Yeah.
That's fine. That's fine.
Okay.
It should light up once we have actual stuff on the field. Let me know if you can't use it once we get to using it, but it's kind of okay that it's doled out at the moment.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. So on this side, we'll get to this in just a second. This is kind of all the pre-made shapes that we'll be able to use. And how we'll make designs is we basically take a couple shapes and kind of glue them into this growing construction. So we can combine shapes. We can also use shapes to kind of gouge out stuff. So if we want to make, like if we put a box on the field, but we want to cut something out of it, we'll use shapes to do that too. And we'll see that in a second. So this is kind of how to add stuff and delete stuff from the growing design. And then finally, what we'll begin to take a look at now is these buttons on the top left. These help us manipulate the plane that we see. So this is called the view cube. And if we just left click on these faces, we can kind of manipulate which view that we get. So as we click around, it's kind of an easy, convenient way to manipulate it. We can see it from the right side, diagonal backside. We can also click and hold and kind of spin it at will, so we can see something from down below. We can spin it like this. So this is a nice convenient tool to be able to just quickly change the view. We can do that. And then in addition to using the view cube, we can also use the mouse to change the view. We'll be using the mouse a lot, obviously, to click on the shapes and do sizing and things like that. And that'll be the left click. But if we use the right hand click, the one we usually use to open the copy and paste menu, the dialog menu, if we right click and hold it down and then move the mouse, we can also move the field at will like this. So this is probably the most convenient way to do it. It's using the right click to kind of spin it around. Also on this, we have the plus minus button, and then we can just use to zoom in and out like that. You can also just use the plus minus on the keypad. We'll always have a couple ways to do each thing, so just use which way that you like best. So we can spin with right click. When we click home, that's going to take us back to this home view. So if I mess up my field and I'm looking at it from down below, upside down, I'll just click on home and it'll take me back to this kind of base front on view. This fit to view button is going to be useful once we have a couple shapes on the field. That'll let us kind of basically focus in on a single shape like that, instead of looking at a huge field at once. So we can use that in a little bit. We got these buttons. And then finally, this last one at the bottom, this kind of changes the type of point of view. This is kind of like a realistic point of view. And then if we go to this one, this is kind of like a blueprint point of view, kind of like a two-dimensionally point of view. It'll kind of make sense to you once we have some shapes on the field and kind of see the difference between what it does to the shape when we look at it. Yeah, so we can zoom in, zoom out, move all around. And then one last thing we might want to do, we notice that we always kind of, as we zoom in and out, look at the middle of the field. But if we have some shapes, up in the top right, in the bottom, how can we move about the actual field itself? Well, if we hold down Shift and then use the right hand click, we can move about the field like this. So I can hold Shift, right click, and move it like this. And then I can just right click to spin it. And then I can hold right click and pan this way. So the right click and right click plus Shift will be kind of the most convenient ways to kind of move about so we can see what we'll be dealing with. And then finally at the end, we'll just click on home to get back to this base view. Okay, so let's get to adding some shapes to the field. So I'm going to be kind of building up a design as we go. Let me see if it's in. Yeah, so we'll be making, just as a class, so we can all follow the same set of steps and use all the tools that I want to show. We'll be making something simple like this, but it kind of showcases all the tools that we need to be able to use this program. So we'll be kind of making this simple design of a little item that kind of helps us hold open a page. So we might make something like this. We can change kind of the design on the top of it, but we'll make this kind of base shape that we can fit into a page. So as I add shapes to the field, if you want to follow along, you'll need to do kind of the same steps so we can all build the same object, and my instructions will make sense. So we'll go to this side. You should have basic shapes open, but if you don't, you can just kind of click on this to change which kind of gallery of shapes to do. But in basic shapes, we'll want to add a cylinder to the field. And if we just click on that, we kind of get a shape, and then we can just choose a place on the field. We'll put it in the middle, and then we can just left click to put it down like this. So we'll be adding a couple shapes as we make this design. And again, design is kind of taking a bunch of shapes, gluing them into one mass to make one contiguous object. So the shape that I put on is going to be this round bit in the middle. We'll have to come back and add like kind of a wedge shape onto it. We'll have to find out how to hollow out the middle, add on the text to the front, but we'll just begin with this middle bit right now. So we'll add that onto the field. And now that we have something on the field, we can kind of practice looking around again. You can see it's a 3D shape that kind of changes as we pan the point of view. If we click the fit to view, it kind of zooms in just on that, so we can kind of see it up close. If we change to the different point of view, you can kind of see, instead of the 3-dimensional view, it kind of looks like it would if you like drew it on a blueprint. It's kind of 2-dimensional at this point. That's sometimes helpful, but we'll mostly stick with the perspective 3-dimensional point of view. Once we have a shape on the field, we can left click it to select it, and then we can kind of do stuff to it. We can left click and hold, and then we can kind of move it about the field. So we can just do that with the left click. And then all these little handles that we see, these dots and these lines, that's all the tools that we can do to any shape. So we can just move it about like we want. We can change the size that we want. We can change, that's the XY, we can change the Z, which is the height of the object. We can move it up and down. So now it's kind of floating off the field. You can see that nice shadow like that. We can, we'll be able to spin it any way that we want. So we can spin it that way. We can spin it this way. We can spin it that way. So all these options that we have, and that's kind of all the basic things that we need. And we just have to do a whole bunch of that to a whole bunch of shapes to make one design. So I'm just gonna undo until I get back to my basic shape. Okay, so let's talk about kind of scaling, changing the size as we get going. Like I said in the beginning, once you take this digital file to a print machine, you can change the actual print size at will. So we don't have to, code in that this is 2 inches tall or 1 inch tall. We just have to check that the design it looks nice relative to itself, and then we can scale it up and down when we want to print it. So it's kind of, in a way, dimensionless right now. So we'll go ahead and click on this. Just relative to itself, again, because we want to make something like this, I kind of want it to be relative to its width, kind of like a thumb's height, because I'm going to put my thumb into that hole. So we can just take this top little handle, and you can pull it down as much as you want. I'm going to put it at about maybe like 12. So it's not too thick relative to how wide it is. So we can scale it down like that. If we want to change kind of the width of it, we can use this. But the problem with this one, as you can see, as you pull it, it kind of skews it one way. So if we don't pull it exactly diagonally, it kind of skews it. So we have a couple ways that we can get around that if we want to change the size. One, we can just choose the X and Y handles. So we can pull this out. And we can see it kind of gives the size, so that's 35. And then we can change this and just keep pulling till it matches the same width. So I changed both the X and Y width, but now it's all completely round again. But the easiest way to do it is if I move about my field, I'll select it again. I'm going to choose this diagonal one, but instead of just pulling it out and having to kind of focus on keeping it straight, if I just hold down the shift button when I pull it, it's going to keep its aspect ratio. So it's not going to skew it. It's going to maintain the shape and just scale up both sides at once equally. So I can hold down shift and do that. And I'll go ahead and put this to like 15. Again, we won't pay attention to like the actual sizing so much of this. And then finally, one tip I'll just mention, you might not need it today, but it's useful to know you can do lots of stuff in this to kind of help you make nice, neat designs. If we hold down shift and pull this, we could see pulling it based from that top left. But what we might find as we make kind of complicated designs and we have a lot of objects on the field is that when we pull it like this, it might be pulling it away from a second shape that we want to kind of not do. So if we hold down shift and hold down alt at the same time, now when I do it, it's going to resize it from the middle. So if I want to resize from the middle, I can do shift and alt and left click. But if I just want to do from one side, I just kind of click the opposite diagonal and then it's going to scale it that way. So again, not so useful immediately right now, but it will be useful if you go on to make a lot of cool stuff. And then finally, one last thing I want to mention while we do this basic stuff is you can see as I pull this out, it seems like you kind of jump at a given unit of like 1. So it's kind of like staccato like that. But you can see down at the bottom right, this snap grid option. If we click on this, it does give like kind of actual sizes, 5 millimeters. If I click on that, now you can see when I size it, it goes 5 at a time. And if I do the opposite, if I maybe change it to 0.1, now we can see I have a lot of fine tuning options. So if you find you can't quite do the fine detail that you want, you might come down and change the snap grid because that helps you easily size it to the units that you want. Go ahead and do that. I'm going to change this back. 1.0 seems to be pretty good. Next, now that we have this on the page, we'll want to kind of hollow out the middle. We just want this shape to basically get this ring about the outside. If we can imagine this as multiple shapes all clumped into one. So to take stuff out of a shape, we just use shapes again, but we just use them in a special way. We can see that like we have this shape, we also have the same one, but as a whole. And if I add this, you can see this is kind of, it looks like a void. And now I'll just show you what's coming. But basically how we take stuff out of a shape is we use this type of whole object. And you can see any shape that we choose, we can make it to a whole type, we can make it solid. So when we make it the whole type and we kind of add it to a shape, what we can see, and again, I'll explain how to do this once we actually do it, but we can combine a solid object with kind of the absence of an object to make a new design. So if I want to make this little half moon shape, I can take a kind of a hollow object and kind of use it to kind of gouge out what I don't want like that. So this is how we make designs, at the basic level. We kind of add a whole bunch of stuff. We take away a couple things, just using these shapes as kind of the tools of the trade. Undo that. I'll just add a new shape. So now we will need to use that. So let me just change this again, bring it back down a little bit. I got my one shape. And then actually, instead of adding a new shape, I'm just going to copy and paste this so I have the same size. So we have copy and paste buttons up in the top left. So you can just copy and paste like that. You can also use the command Control-C, Control-V, and then you get the same exact thing. So you can choose which one you like best. And then what we need to do is we basically need to put this on top of, kind of in the same place as the shape we have now, change the size of a little bit. So it's kind of just on the inside, leaving a little bit of outside ring. And then we need to do that combination that I just showed to kind of join them into one new shape. So to begin, we'll select one of them. I'll make it the whole type. And then we could just click it and kind of try and drag it into the same place. That's pretty easy at this point. But actually the easiest way to align two objects is to, if you left click and drag, you can select multiple objects at once. So now you can see I've both selected and I can do stuff to them at the same time. So I'm going to select both of them. And then I'm going to come up to my top tools and I'm going to choose the align tool. And then you can see I get all these options. And this is basically going to help me automatically align these two things. So you can kind of see if I choose, let me move this a little bit so it kind of makes sense what it's doing. So if I choose align, I can kind of align them that way. I can do them this way, and then I can pull them in. And now I have them kind of taking up the same space. You can see I have the bottom shape and the whole shape kind of occupying the same exact place at this point. So now we need to select the whole shape and kind of change the size just a little bit so it's inside the outside shape, but not taking up the whole space. So to do that, it's kind of difficult to choose that inside shape by itself. But if we just click and just check that we have that, we can then use the hold Shift and hold Alt button, because now it becomes useful to resize things in the middle of something. So now I can see it's scaling to the middle of the second object. So that's going to help it get lined up and have a nice even ring. So I'm going to scale it all to the middle of that outside shape. I can just, choose it, Shift Alt, and kind of bump it in a little bit. It's kind of a little bit difficult to see. So what we can actually do is I'm going to move this. I'm going to choose this one, and I'm going to click on this solid button. If you don't see it, you can click on this. And we can change kind of what it looks like just to help us kind of visualize different pieces on the page, but we can actually make it transparent as well. And it's still a solid shape. That's just what it looks like on the page. So I can apply that, and then I can left click and select both again. I'm going to go back and align them so they take up the same spot. Now you can see I kind of have the opposite of what I want. I have the whole shape on the outside and the solid shape in the middle. So what I need to do is just click on the whole shape. I can hold Shift and Alt, and I'm going to drag it in like this. I'm going to bump it in a little bit, and now we can see it. It's kind of floating in the inside like that. And now it's in the inside like that. One thing that we need to do is we use the right click to kind of pan about. We can see as we scaled it in, it looks good on the sides, but it's actually not reaching up to the top. So when we combine this, it's not going to punch out the top of that shape. So one last thing we need to do, I'm just going to pan like this, grab my Z-axis handle and just pull it up like that. And now it's the same height, but it's kind of floating in the middle like that. And then the last thing we need to do is we just need to select both of these objects. We can left click and drag. And then a new tool up at the top, it's this group object tool. So we can just find that button, click it, and then we can see it kind of takes the two shapes and make them into a new shape. And what it basically does is takes that solid shape that we have, and it removes anything that whole shape was occupying. So now we have a nice hollow ring, basically. It's going to be this piece of the ring on the side. Zoom back out. If I want, I can select it and then click the fit to view as we get ready to do the next steps. And what we'll need to do next is we'll want to put something like a wedge on top, and that's going to be this little wedge piece that actually fits the pages of the book. So I'm going to come in, we'll take a look at basic shapes again. At the top, we see a nice little, it's called the roof shape. We'll choose that. That looks good enough. We can kind of scale it as we need. So I'll click on that. I'll just need to put it someplace on my page. And then I'll need to resize it, move it, all that stuff as we go. So I'll put it on my page any place I want. We can see that I kind of need to flip it on its side. It's not facing the way that it should. So now I can actually use these flip tools. So we just need to get these little bent arrow tools and just find the one that makes sense. So I need this one. I can flip it like this. We can see that it's showing me the angle that I'm flipping it at. One thing to note is if you keep the mouse on kind of the inside of this compass ring, it moves in nice kind of chunky increments if you just want to do a nice even move. But if you want to kind of finely manipulate something, you can pull it to the outside and then you can go bit by bit like that. But since I just need to flip it by 90, I'll go like that. And now we can kind of see it's kind of the shape that we need it to be like that. It's facing the way that we need it. One last thing we'll need to do is we can see as we flipped it, now it's sticking out kind of below that kind of digital plane that we have. So we'll just go ahead and select on that. This is the height thing. So I don't want to change the height itself. I just want to move it like this. I'm going to go like this. I can pull this up and down now. And I can kind of pull it up. I see the size on the right-hand side, and I can just pull it to 0 like that. And that'll fit it on it. I can also, if I want, to select it and click the D button on the keypad. And D just means down, and that just basically takes a shape and makes it make contact with this kind of digital plane that we have. So we got that. And then we actually do need to change the height. So let me just double check the height on this. This is 12. We'll go ahead and match this and make this 12 as well. So this time we need this little box handle. So we can pull this down. And now we can kind of see the basic shape. I can do shift and right click to pan up. If I take a look at my little model, I kind of want it to not, I kind of want to widen it so it sticks out a little bit. So what I can do is I can click on this and I can, do it in a couple ways. I can just pull on one size handle, just kind of eyeball it as you want, pull it that way. And now it's kind of a bit wide, that's good. And then lastly, we just want to kind of put this one on top of this. So what we can do, we can use that align tool again, because we kind of want to always automate it. We don't want to always guess if this is exactly on top of it and exactly in the middle. So instead of doing that, we'll use the align tool. So I'll left click and select both objects, go back up, and I will find that align tool, those little stacked boxes. And then we can see we get all my buttons. This will be a two-click alignment. So you just have to kind of play around with what each of these little aligns does. But it looks like this one is pretty good, so let me do that. And then it looks like I can't exactly put it the way that I want. So I could click this one, and then I'll just have to fix it a little bit. And to do that, I can just click on this. And then I can use the arrow keys. I can just click on my up button like this, and I can just pull it up like this as much as I need. So I got it in the middle with my align tool, but I still want to kind of change how much it sticks out. So on this, it's kind of like halfway down. So I can leave it kind of halfway down. I'm just going to click down while I have it selected. Maybe it's not quite tall enough, so let me pull it like this a little bit. I'll move it back up a little bit. Maybe I'll pull it down again. It's all up to you. As you make these shapes, you might have to make a couple prototypes and then change it up again. Let me pull this out a little bit. Maybe it wasn't the best way, and then I can realign these like this. Put it back in the middle, and that actually looks pretty good. So that looks like a nice tool. Now we know how to take this out. This is supposed to be the spot that I put my thumb in. We've done that previously, and we kind of just need to do the same thing again to kind of take out this bit of the new shape that's in conflict with that hollow that we need. So what we need to do, so we could try it, we could select both objects and click that group button. But when we do it, we can see it doesn't cut that out. And so we'll need to undo that. So we won't do that. What we need to do is select just the ring shape. And then what we need to do is ungroup it. We can kind of undo what we did. And now we can see we've gotten back to 3 shapes. We got the wedge, we got the outside can, and then we got the inside can, which is the hollowing out tool. And now that we have that hollowing out tool, again, that whole shape, now when we select all and combine them, now that kind of hollowing out shape is going to hollow out both the ring and the wedge at once. So that's why we needed to kind of undo it, to kind of use it again like that. So now we got the nice basic shape that we need. This is kind of all we need, but now we can add some jazz to it. We can put some stuff on the end of it, things like that. So we might want to like make it kind of like a ring. We might want to put a diamond on top. We might want to kind of like bend it because pages don't look exactly, you know, like this angle. They have a little bit of roundness to them. We might want to, so we can do some roundness. We can add some text on it. So now we'll do a couple things to finish it out and make it a complete design. Any questions up until this point? And again, you can chime in anytime you want me to stop. But is everybody following along? Did you get to this point if you're following along? Okay, so if we sound good, we'll go ahead and keep chugging along. So now that we have the basic shape, we can kind of add anything that we want to this. So we can imagine this is kind of the book, this is holding open the page, and this bit is kind of sticking up. So we might want to put a little bit of a design on top of this, you know, something. So this is when we can kind of browse all the pre-made shapes that we have. I'm going to kind of stick to basic shapes. And we might want to do something like maybe add a diamond to it. So we can pick a diamond and put that on the field in case we want to use it. And then we can see we got a nice diamond that we'll have to flip and attach to this. We might want to do something like this instead. So we can get this little shape. So we'll take a look at these two and see what we can do with them. Let me zoom out a little bit. Okay. So now that we've got 2 new shapes, we'll go ahead and pick one to actually put on it. But I do want to show you one thing about some shapes. Some shapes, when you pick on them, you basically get no options. You can make it a whole shape, so you can cut some stuff out. You can make it a solid shape, but we don't have anything else we can do with it. But some shapes come with all these little settings, and you can kind of customize what the shape looks like. So we can add some points to this if we want, you know, 8 points. We can kind of change the radius of it. We can change kind of inside radius to make it, you know, so spiky, something like that. So a couple of these shapes will have these kinds of settings to help you additionally customize it in this menu instead of doing it all by hand. So that's just something to keep in mind. You might see these additional options kind of hidden below the shape name itself. So that's that kind of shape. But some shapes just come as they come. So we'll take this one and kind of attach it to the ring and see what we can do with it. So let's go ahead and actually I'm going to make a copy of this. So I'm just going to Control-C, Control-V. You can also just use these buttons up at the top. And I'm just going to make a copy and put the copy aside. And that way I can make a whole bunch of changes to this if I want. And then if I want to go back and do it from scratch again, I still have the base shape. If I want to make 2 editions of this, I have the same base shape and maybe 2 different designs on top. So I'll just leave that to the side. But we'll go ahead and just do some stuff with these 2 at the moment. So let me go ahead. So we'll need to align these and things like that again. So actually, let's focus on the diamond. So we'll take the diamond, we'll need to flip it, and we'll use that nice inside rotation handle to flip to a nice even 90. Again, if you have the mouse on the outside, you go degree by degree, so that might be a little bit difficult to line it up. But if you go on the inside, you can go hop to a nice even 90. We can see, again, as we flip it, this is now sticking out the bottom of this, the kind of plane. So let me click on that, and I'll click D, and that's going to make the bottom of it just touch the tip of it. And then what else I might want to do? I might want to make these the same height, obviously, so it's not sticking out too much. So if I click on this, I can see this is 12 high. So if I click on this, if I just pull it down, I get that skew going on. So I'm going to undo that. And I might want to do something like if I hold down Shift and then resize it, it's going to resize it, maintaining its kind of basic shape. So that's always a good tool to use. And now we can kind of see if we just move this to the right and then move it back to make contact, it looks like it'll fit nicely. So now that I got that, I'll kind of pan my view, Shift and right click to move this. And then I can select both again. And again, I'm just going to use my align tool so I don't have to do this all by hand. I'm going to want to match them up this way. And then I can match them up this way. Again, it doesn't do exactly as I want. It's just kind of doing it to the middle of the shapes, but that's okay. So we can do that. And then I'm going to select it. And then I can just click on the down key to kind of pull it out like this. Pull it like that. I'm not going to want it exactly touching the tip because I want it to be connected by enough plastic that it's not going to snap off like that. So I'm actually going to kind of embed it kind of halfway, and then we can imagine it'll look like this in the final design. And then obviously one last time, we need to kind of make this into one contiguous object. So we need to do that little trick that we did last time. We need to ungroup this shape. And then we get back that kind of hollow out shape, that hole in the middle. And then once we group it all, that whole shape is going to hole out the outside ring shape, the bit of the wedge that's sticking in the middle, and the diamond that's sticking in the middle. So now I can left click, select all, use the group button. And now I have one nice even shape like that. It's all even and round on the inside with nothing sticking out like that. So that's pretty good. One thing we might want to do to this is we might want to, if we take a look at these guys, these obviously have a little bit of roundness to them because they follow kind of the roundness of the page. And a lot of these shapes, they just go at 90-degree angles, straight lines. So when it comes to kind of squiggles and things like that, it's a little bit difficult, but we can still find a way to do that. So this time we'll go to the shapes side menu. Instead of basic shapes, we want to go to this bottom one. We want to generate a new shape. So all the way on the bottom, we'll click on this guy, shape generators. I want to, it shows us a couple, doesn't show the one that I want. So I'm going to click on all. And then we can see we have a lot of cool shapes that we can use. We can choose a state if we want. So this is what it means to generate a shape. It's a specific, it's a kind of general shape that we can then customize like we did a little bit ago. We have walls, houses, countries, things like that. We'll keep going. We could see that we have some text shapes, so we can make custom 3D text if we want. We can kind of do some round text. Maybe we want to do some text along the outside of the ring instead of the diamond. You know, something that looks like this, we could do that. We could just use the plain text to do something like that. So we'll just kind of leave that on the page. Maybe we'll use that. But let's keep going. The one annoying thing about this application is it doesn't have any kind of type in the name of a shape and find it immediately. It doesn't have an alphabetical listing of shapes. So it's kind of something you just kind of have to browse and find all the cool stuff at the bottom. So it takes a while to get to it. So just keep clicking if you don't find it. And then finally, you want this one, this extruded shape. Looks like a little bit of a squiggle. We can click on that and just pop it onto the page. I'm going to put it down this way because I'm going to be using it on this wall to kind of give the ring a bent shape. Move all this stuff out of my way. Okay, so if you find that, again, in shape generators, all the way down, if you keep clicking on this button. This is one of those shapes that when we click on it, we get all these options that we can do. And basically we can change, this little squiggle shape. So as we do this, we can kind of change what this looks like. So I can change that like that. I've done this previously, so I know kind of the settings of the shape. But if you don't know, you just kind of pull these handles and see what it does. And you just kind of have to manually choose kind of a subjective squiggle that you want. I'm going to do 10, 15, 0, I think 25, 2.9, and 16. And now you can see, again, I just found these settings previously by just playing with it. But just to save time, I'll give you the settings. Now you can see when I go like this, it's got like a nice little book shape. This is the spine, and then it goes up, and then the page lays out like that. So we can use this to kind of match it up and kind of bend this straight edge like this. So you just move it. With this kind of thing, I found that I can't use the align tool in this case. You can't always use it. Sometimes you have to manually align things. So if you need to flip it, you can use the flip tool, and you can flip it any way that you need to. So I'm going to do it like this. I'm going to bend it down like this. And this is when it may be useful to use this kind of blueprint mode. So you can see it kind of fully top down like this. And then it's just kind of manual at this point. I'm just kind of resize this. I might take this ring and kind of make it invisible so that I can kind of see the shape as it fits on top of it. So I can just kind of move this in a way. I might bump this up like that. Might need to bump it down a little like this. Pull it like that. And this is when things get kind of, you just have to play with it a lot to get what effect that you want. So I might pull this down a little bit like that. Pull this out one last time, just kind of try and match it like that. And now it's got kind of a nice squiggle to it. Go like that. So that's not too bad. So now that I have that, that's a lot of button pushing. And if I needed to match it up exactly the same way on the opposite side, it might be a little bit difficult. But what I can do now that I have this nicely matched up, I can select my little bend like this. Control C, Control V, I get a nice copy of it. And it's on the same level, the same like XY level. And then I can use this tool to flip it. So flip it like this. And then I don't want to move it up and down, so I'm not going to use my mouse. I'm going to use my right and left arrow. And it's going to slide it this way. I might not match it up exactly. I might need to zoom in to see that that's exactly what I want. But that looks pretty good at that point. Oops. I don't know what just happened to them. Oh, they've. Okay. A little bit of a glitch may just happen. And then finally, we know what to do next. We'll just select both of these. I'm going to make them like the whole type. And then I can just select all of it and just combine them again with the group button. And then what do they do? let's see. Okay, let's undo that. So undo that. Okay, so we got, I haven't found any glitches in this website yet. It may be the fact that I'm on Zoom with 10 people at once while doing this, but it doesn't seem to like what I'm doing right now. But I think it might just be my laptop, not the website itself. Try this one last time. Okay, well, I'll leave that because we know the last step was just to group it, and then we kind of cut out and get a nice bend along the side. So sadly, we can't see the final product, but it would look something. This is what it was going to be. You would cut out the side, and then you would get a nice bend to it, up a little bit like that. But that's how we can do a custom kind of clove like that. And then we see that we added some text to the page. So if we didn't want the diamond, we could do something else instead. That's why we made this copy. So I just want to show you how we can do this text easily. So we can pull this text. Let me zoom in so I can see it. Let me spin it. So spin it like this. Let me move it this way. And then I need to spin it one last time. So let me spin it like this. And then I'll click D to bump it up. We know the steps now. I'll select this and make it exactly 12 high so it's not sticking up too much. And then what we could do with this, we could just slide it back. Something else I want to show you, we can put kind of a new plane on the field to kind of help us align things. So if I click on this kind of grid up at the top left, we can see I get this new tool. And what I can do is I can click something flat, like I can click this. And now you can see kind of my field, it has a change. This is kind of my new tabletop, what I just put on this object. So this is my original table. If I want to, I can kind of put one on like this. And now if I click that and push D, it's going to pull it all the way down. It's going to kind of nicely embed it on the ring. We know how to get rid of this stuff in the middle. We can kind of change this a little bit if we want. There's lots of clicking around. Maybe we don't want it to be quite so tall. We just wanted it to stick out enough that it's showing all the stuff. And then we can come in and kind of change the text if we want. We can change it like that. You can change the type size. You have a couple font options, a couple text options in these shapes. So you can play around with that and find one that you like that. But then we just kind of add that on. We just have to group it again, cutting out the middle. If we want to, we could then apply the same, add a bend to the side, so it kind of squiggles and fits the shape of a book. And then when we want to go back to the original plane of view, we just grab this plane tool and just kind of like drop it, not touching a shape. And then we get back to the original kind of three-dimensional tabletop that we have going on. Yeah, so that is, so I know it was kind of fast. Let me see what the chat says actually. So that's the basic tools of this, kind of spinning things, aligning things, grouping things to both make a new object and cut some stuff out of an existing shape. That's all kind of the basic tools. And that'll take you quite a long way with this. So any questions about the actual design kind of editing window at the end of the class? If not, I'll mention a couple things just about 3D printing in general. But that's the end of the demonstration itself if you need to leave or anything. Okay, so so you can still ask questions, but I'll just show you a couple things as we wind down the last couple minutes. One, to kind of save this as a file so you can put it on a USB and take it to the print machine. You just click on this button up in the top right, and then you can kind of download it. You can click on everything in this file. You can choose a specific shape if you have multiple in this box. And what we need when we do a print at the library is a .stl file. So I can click on that, and this is just going to download me a file. You see a couple different options that you can use with different things, but we'll need a .stl. Some things you can do besides download this file, you can upload pre-existing files to this. So if you go to like this site and you like something like this little mouse, you can click on it, and then you can see you can just download all files. And then you can see it's a .stl, just like we downloaded. And then once you have that, you can click on this, drop the mouse file into this, and then you can edit it, you can customize it. You can, with this mouse file, maybe you like the little tail design that they made that actually moves and you don't know how to make that yourself. So what you could do is kind of chop everything off except the tail. And then if you want to, you could put a new animal in its place and just glue that tail on if you wanted to do a cat instead, a dog. So that's something you could do to customize things. So you could drop a 3D object file into this. You can also do something like if you have something two-dimensional, like if I zoom out, I just dropped a two-dimensional moose, it's called a .svg file into this. So if you have like a company logo, if you have some 2D design of something in a .svg file, you can put it in this. It basically makes it two-dimensional, but it just adds a little bit of height to it, like this. You can see I just have a little bit of a two-dimensional moose now. But now I might be able to, if I wanted to put this on the top of my ring, I can just kind of flip this. If I want to make it just a thin little embossing on the top of the ring, I can just kind of pull it all the way down. So it's just kind of one high, just kind of a slight impression upon it. And then it's just like anything else, three-dimensional at this point. So you can put in 2D stuff. You can get existing 3D files and pull them into this and tinker around with them, all those kinds of things. So if you find some toys that you like, you can find the files. You can see this one is just some gear wheels and some handles. And so you can find that. You can also make these in this website. So if we go to a couple of these different shape options, you can get kind of things like this. You can get some gear wheels. You can get all these little, snappable socket pieces and things like that to connect things and make, movable toys and things like that. They have a whole section of just like house goods. If you don't want to make something that you print out, maybe you just like making stuff in 3D. You can make a little house if you want. All kinds of cool stuff and pre-built things that you can use in this program. Okay. And again, once we get back in the main building, if you finish up one of your own designs and you want to print it out, see what it comes out like, you can come by and we'll print it on the house for you to come into this class. Okay, any questions? So that was all the basics, but if you have any questions about what you can do beyond this, want to clarify something we did in the class, let me know now. And I don't know what's happening to those shapes that keep vanishing. Might have too many things on the page with Zoom open.
Hey, Matthew, this is really great. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
I guess I just have a question about the handout that you were talking about. Did you say it was in the chat, or is there some other place we can access your docs here?
Yeah, so if you go, I guess it's at the top of the chat now. They have a couple comments. So you should be able to see this too. That's this handout link that you can get this in. Let me know if you see that.
I just see JG saying something and me saying something. I don't see.
You don't see this up at the top?
Um,
I'll paste it back in. Let me see. Oops. Okay, let me post it back again.
oh, okay, now I see it. Thank you.
Okay, yeah, maybe it deletes the last couple chats.
Yep, I got it. Thank you very much.
Okay, yeah.
I'm a lot slower than you, so I'm gonna have to go back and try to
Yeah.
make this on my own time.
Yeah, it's a lot of little manipulations and buttons and tools. But with everything we talked about today, you should be able to manipulate and design a whole bunch of stuff with just these basics.
Yeah, it looks great. And when do you think the library will be back open that we could come in and use the 3D printer again?
So hopefully we'll at least know in April and maybe go back in late April. We've been waiting to go back. All the construction is done. It's just a couple last items coming in on the supply chain that have been delayed. So we hope it's soon, within a month, 2 months at most at this point.
Great.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, thanks all. If you don't have any questions, feel free to sign out. I'll hang about in case anyone wants to ask anything.